So what I'd like to do today is tell you about a project we've been working on in parallel. So Daniel told you about RethinkDB 2.3. We've also been working on a project called Horizon, and I've introduced it here a little bit before. Today we're going to go a little bit more in depth and look at some code. What Horizon is, it's an open source development platform for helping people build JavaScript applications. And the reason why we built Horizon is that a lot of our users, a lot of RethinkDB users, tend to use RethinkDB to build modern web apps, mobile apps, games, collaborative applications, things like that. And as we help them with RethinkDB, we very often discover some of the challenges that they're facing in building out their infrastructures, building their applications. So what we learned in the process of helping people with Rethink is, okay, like if you want to build a scalable, modern JavaScript web application, what does it take? Well, it takes quite a few things. And the first thing is, as you start building the app, whether you're doing it at a hackathon or you're doing it at large enterprise scale, doesn't matter. There's an enormous amount of boilerplate you have to deal with. So before you can do anything, like you have to set up a database, you have to set up a web server. You start building out your app, typically in React or Angular or any modern web framework. Then you have to build a lot of CRUD, like endpoints on the web server. You have to thread all this stuff through to the database code. You have to deal with sessions. You have to deal with just a ton of things that are very common in modern applications. And then once you've built your app and you want to share it with people, now you have to deal with deployment. So you have to take all these things and figure out how to get it on the internet. And the technology to do all of these things has been steadily improving with Node.js and tons of libraries, what the guys at Amazon have been doing with AWS. Just things have been getting better and better. But it still requires an enormous amount of time and expertise to build an app, get it deployed, and then maintain it, upgrade it, get it scaled out, all these things. And we learned a lot about this by watching people use Rethink, so we decided to build Horizon, which is a way to make a lot of that stuff way, way easier. So before I get into Horizon, let's just talk a little bit for a second about how people deal with this problem today. And as far as we can tell, there's really like three major ways of doing it. So the first is just kind of sucking it up and just dealing with these challenges. And a lot of people do that, a lot of companies do that. That's hard because it requires a lot of time, a lot of effort. It's hard to get talent. It requires big budgets. It's just very, very challenging. No one likes it, but there aren't good alternatives. The second way is by using Firebase. And just by show of hands, how many people have heard of or used Firebase before? OK, cool. And maybe like Parse, but Facebook shut down Parse now. So Firebase is a really, really great service. Helps you get up to speed and build apps very, very quickly. It's excellent. The challenge with Firebase is that it's part of the Google infrastructure. It runs on Google Cloud. It provides a very, very specific service. So it does the things that it does really, really well. But if you want to expand your app to do more than you can do with Firebase, if you want to run it yourself on premise, if you have requirements like HIPAA compliance, you just can't use Firebase at all. So what very often would happen is that people start with Firebase, they build their app, they deploy it, and then once they start hitting like kind of not necessarily enterprise scale challenges, but any challenges that you have to deal with a modern app, they just tend to move off because something like Firebase, which is a service, is very, very limited. And the third solution, and this I think is approaching kind of something better, is Meteor. And again, by show of hands, how many people have heard of or used Meteor before? Okay, a bit fewer people. So Meteor is a JavaScript development platform. It's open source. They also have something called Meteor Galaxy, which lets you deal with deployment, and Meteor will, so the Meteor company will, you pay for the Galaxy product, they get your apps on the internet. So Meteor has a couple of challenges as well. The main one, I think, is architectural. It's very, very monolithic. So with Meteor, you very often either buy into the Meteor ecosystem or you do not. Like there is no middle ground whatsoever. For example, it doesn't work all that well with NPM. It uses an old version of Node.js, and they've been working on fixing it. I don't know if they fixed it already. They have a lot of kind of custom libraries that they built. And we felt, so it's pretty good, but we felt that the world is really moving away from this monolithic way of doing things. And it's moving towards the bizarre, open source, lots of people working on different things, kind of the developers, the market deciding what works, what doesn't work, sort of this evolutionary model rather than intelligent design. And the idea behind Horizon is that, well, if Meteor is kind of the intelligent design of these JavaScript platforms, Horizon is going to be like the evolutionary approach to these platforms. So that's kind of a fundamental philosophical difference that you'll see a lot in the architecture. So okay, so what is Horizon? It is open source. It's modular and it's extensible. So the idea is to fix the challenges that people face with Firebase and Meteor. First of all, you can download Horizon on your laptop. You can build your app. If you want to deploy things, you can deploy it yourself any way you want. You're not like kind of locked into the cloud service that Google offers. The second thing is that it's modular and it works really, really well with NPM and with Node.js. It completely integrates into the ecosystem. You could use the parts that you want, and you can completely discard the parts that you don't. You can use any other JavaScript library. And it's extensible. So the idea is, like, as you build your simple app, we provide all the scaffolding. But then as things get more complicated, as any real app does, you don't just use like this prefabricated backend. You only start with it. And then you can like build real Node code and extend it with your own custom code, use custom databases, all that stuff. So it's designed to be robust, industrial strength in a way where enterprises can consume it. And finally, Horizon, we're working on something called Horizon Cloud. And Horizon Cloud is just a set of services to help people deploy Horizon apps. So the idea is you download Horizon, you build your app, then you say Horizon deploy, and things are on the internet. You could do it yourself, but deploying things at scale is really, really hard, especially across machines and data centers. And that's what Horizon Cloud is going to solve. OK, so I kind of explained the motivation for why we built Horizon. What I'd like to do, I haven't actually said anything about how it works. So what I'd like to do is show you a quick demo. What I have here is a chat app that comes kind of as a standard example with React. So all of this is built in React. If you use React, you can just download this chat app on the internet. And the idea is just to build a collaborative chat application. You have multiple users. They type something. They type a message. All the other users see this. So this file just has the client-side code to make this chat work. It has the input boxes. You can type messages, all the stuff you'd expect in an app. So this is all JavaScript, all React. It's not actually that big. Like you see, there's all the HTML here, JavaScript. So let's say you've built your client-side part of the application. Now you want to actually make the app work. So very often what people would do is you'd build your Node.js server or Python server or whatever else you build the backend in, and then you connect the front-end part of the app to the backend. Now what we learned is that the front end is getting richer and richer, right? Like React and Angular and other frameworks are designed in a way where developers are encouraged to put more and more and more logic on the front end. And very often what happens now is if you build your app, the back end is basically just a bunch of boilerplate. So what Horizon is, at the beginning, as you get started, is this prefabricated back end. So you can build your app completely in the front end without writing a single line of back-end code. So what I'd like to do now is show you, I'm going to start Horizon, and I'm going to show you how this app works. So to start Horizon, I have my examples directory. There is React chat app here, and it's the code I just showed you in Atom. So to start Horizon, you say hz serve, and you just pass the name, the name of the application. Again, this is basically the same React chat app that you can download off the internet with a few modifications I'll show you. So you say hz serve. We're starting it in dev mode. We're giving it some information about the network interfaces. But basically, what this will do is it will start a Horizon server. Horizon is built on top of RethinkDB for all the real-time functionality and scalability. So the Horizon server will connect to RethinkDB. It's built in Node. And what that means is like you get a prefabricated backend. You just built your front-end part, at least at the beginning, and you get your working app. So OK, I've started Horizon. Let's now look at the actual app. So this is running at localhost 8181. I'm going to do it in the other browser too. And it's just a basic chat application. So, hello 123, and you see that it shows up in both clients. And then I can do this stuff here. This is a response, and you see it everywhere. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is show you. So we're going to dig into the code of this chat application, and I'll show you literally what it takes, how to modify it to get it working with Horizon. And it's just a couple of lines. So let's switch back to Atom. I've got my code here, and what I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to search for the string Horizon, and we'll look at all of the Horizon code. Okay, so the first part is this part. And all this is doing is just taking the Horizon package, assigning it to a variable, so now we can access the Horizon namespace. This is just like any other, package code, and it lets us start using Horizon API to store data, retrieve data, subscribe to things, stuff like that. The next place, this is just a little bit of boilerplate for React. How many people, by show of hands, use React before? Okay, quite a few. So React has state, properties, stuff like that. All we're doing here is, so we're taking this string here, Horizon React messages, and just sticking it into a property. So what this does is, Horizon refers to the backend server, and then you can have collections. So you can have as many collections as you want. You could have, users, companies, organizations. These are kind of equivalent to database tables, basically. In RethinkDB, it's equivalent to tables where you can store documents. So we have a collection called React messages, and these are just messages that users type, and I'll show you a little bit what that looks like. So all we're saying is access this collection and put it in the props so the code can access them later. And then finally, we have to define two methods. And these are just the methods in the app. One is save. So anytime someone types a message, the message gets saved through Horizon into RethinkDB. And then subscribe. And subscribe is the other way around. When the message comes back out, you render it in the browser. So the save method calls horizon.store. Horizon.store is a command that literally lets you store documents in the backend. And what we're storing here is the ID of the document, the actual message, and a couple of other things like author ID and date, so we can sort them. So this part here, anytime you type a message, save gets called, this function gets called, and everything gets stored. And then subscribe is the opposite. Subscribe says, okay, when something happens on the backend, take that in the front end and then write it and then render it so the user can see it. And subscribe is right here. So this is a little bit more sophisticated. So what we're doing is we're ordering by time. So we're taking all the messages, we're ordering them by time, limiting to the number of messages, and then we're calling watch. And watch basically, so there are a couple of ways of getting data, and this particular way says, anytime something changes, let me know on the front end. So whenever someone types a message on one client, all of that goes through the Horizon server, through RethinkDB, and then pops back out to all the other clients that are interested in this message. And then all this does is sets the message state, and then React just renders it. So that is it. All of this, by the way, so all of this is front end, in case this wasn't clear. And these are the only two things we had to do. We didn't have to write a line of backend code. We didn't have to set up any servers. Like you just say Horizon init or Horizon serve, all of that stuff gets started, and it works. And I'll show you, so I typed a couple of messages here, and I'll show you what this looks like in the actual database. So I'm going to go and try to figure out, there's a lot of data here. I'm going to try to figure out what the RethinkDB port is. Okay, it's this one. So if we go to localhost 58.825, I hope you guys can see this. Let's go to the Data Explorer. So this is just RethinkDB. All of this, RethinkDB is the data store for Horizon. Everything is backed by it. And I can actually look at the messages here. So I'm going to say r.table, or rather r.db. I think it's horizon.table React messages. So you saw, we use React Messages on the front end. What that does is literally creates a React Messages table in RethinkDB, and that's where everything gets stored. And then if I look at the messages here, I'll see the stuff that I just typed in. That's what gets created. And I'll show you something really cool. So I can manipulate these tables in the Data Explorer directly. And Horizon, part of the reason why it's built on Rethink is that it takes advantage of the change feed and real-time streaming functionality. So all of that stuff goes through RethinkDB, and it's fundamentally scalable. It's not like an uplog hack or anything like that. So you can scale out the database clusters. You can run as many Horizon servers as you want, and everything will still work at scale. And so an example of this is if let's say I want to delete all the messages. So I'm typing here in the Data Explorer. So I just deleted the messages in the database, and you see that in the chat they all disappeared. Right, so there is a complete integration between the database, the Horizon server, and the front end. And anything you do anywhere kind of affects everything else. And all of this is done in a scalable way, because if a client says, like, I'm only interested in these messages, then they're only going to get the messages that they care about. So if you have millions and millions of users, you don't have to worry about like any of the typical problems that you see in these systems. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about the architecture of Horizon. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but we'll just cover this to some degree. So this is just the GitHub page and the README. This isn't publicly available yet because we're working on Horizon kind of on a very small team with contributors. So if you guys are interested, we'd love to add you. This is going to go live in a couple of weeks, and all of this is going to be open source. But what Horizon includes is a couple of things. So first, the Horizon server, which is the thing I just started, that runs on top of RethinkDB and deals with all of the endpoints, WebSockets, scaling the web server part, connecting to the database, indices, performance, all these things. So you'd never have to worry about it at the beginning. It includes the client library, and the client library is this API right here that I showed you, running queries like this and sorting things, storing documents, things like that. It includes the HZ tool. So what I just showed you is HZ serve to start Horizon and Rethink. That's only one of the things it can do. It can do a lot of other things. In particular, it does deployment, which I can't demonstrate right now. But once you build this app, you'll be able to say HZ deploy, and you'll get a URL, and you'll be able to share this URL with people, and your app will be in the cloud on Amazon or on Google on Google services in a couple of seconds. And then the deployment services, what we call Horizon Cloud, also allow for industrial strength, like really robust production deployments, so things like scalability, multiple data centers, stuff like that. So Horizon also has, is going to have, probably not in the first version, GraphQL support to make building React apps and hopefully other apps that support GraphQL really, really easy. And then it will have a whole bunch of services that take the patterns that are common in web and app development, and it will ship with them to make things really easy. So this is stuff like authentication, like authenticating through Facebook or Google or whatever, things like sessions, identity, permission system, all the stuff that's kind of common in web applications. All right, so I mentioned before, we're working on this in a small team, but we're adding more and more people, who are interested in playing in Horizon. I think there's probably about 500 people right now. So if you guys are interested, go to Horizon.io. You can sign up. So you can just give your email address and GitHub handle. We'll add you to the GitHub project. You can join us on Slack, and we'd really appreciate your feedback on Horizon. If you want to contribute stuff, that's great. If you don't, that's still cool. Just any kind of feedback on the API, on the services, documentation, how it works would really, really, really help. And let's see, the last thing I'd like to do is, and I don't know if this is going to work because there's some restrictions here on the heavy bit network, but I have a very, very handsome RethinkDB cup that I will give away to one lucky winner. And if Christina could please bring it to me. What I'd like to do is share the URL. This is right now localhost, but I want to run ngrok, share the URL of the chat app, and the first person to type a message is going to get this lovely, lovely cup. Oh, actually, so maybe the first person will get this lovely cup with this beautiful artwork, and the second person will get this less lovely but still wonderful plastic cup. I'm going to set it down here for a second. So I have no idea if this will work, but we're going to give it a try. So I'm going to start ngrok. Let's try to do that. This is going to be, all right, so the URL here is something you're going to have to raise to type. I'll give it back, I'll give it back. All right, can you guys see this? All right, here it is. So you're going to try to type different messages, like we're going to use the honor system. So, you know, please. No, you can do whatever you want. All right, it's a bunch of people. So how is this sorted? That's a real question. Hang on. All right, so the first one is Robert. Robert, I don't know where you are. All right. So you come right up and get this handsome, handsome ceramic cup with RethinkDB artwork.
Thank you.
Everyone give a round of applause to Robert. All right, and the second, ooh, someone's being really mean and pasting scripts. All right, who said hi? All right. Yeah. You get this other cup. Come up on stage. Wow, this actually worked. This was cool because I tried to use this. I tried to do this before. Yeah, man. I tried to do this before on the iPhone, and for some reason it didn't work. But I'm glad this actually worked. This was fun. All right, so seriously, guys, thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll answer them now. If you have some time, you want to play with this, please go to Horizon.io, sign up. We're not going to spam you or anything. Part of the reason why is because we think it's morally wrong, but the second reason is we don't really have the resources to write like spam emails because we're a startup, so I promise you're not going to get any. Sign up, we'd love your feedback. All right, do you have any questions?